Yeah, how are we going to record this episode and not say time 500 times?
Get ready for it, listeners. It's time to listen. Hello and welcome to Frequency Broads. I'm Tara.
And I'm Victoria, and we are so happy you are here with us today. I'd like to lead us through a brief embodiment practice and breathwork session. So if you are seated, I encourage you to remain so. And anchor down through your hips and slowly bring your presence up through your spine, to your shoulders, up your neck, and out the top of your head. And join me for 3 breaths, inhaling into the lower abdomen, allowing the breath to rise up into your chest, your mouth, and exhaling through your nose. Inhaling again. This time we're going to suspend at the top, holding your breath for 1, 2, 3, and then exhaling through your mouth, allowing heavy sighs or any sort of sound to release from your mouth. And for our final breath here, inhaling, expanding the chest and the heart into the throat, suspending the breath for 1, 2, 3, and exhaling, letting it all out and beginning to move your spine in a circle. So starting in your belly and just kind of slowly rocking around in a circle. And then I encourage you to switch directions. Slowly bringing the energy and awareness up into your chest, into your heart center, allowing your rib cage to be fully engaged in the spinal circulation movement. Continuing to inhale and exhale deeply, intentionally, until you bring this movement up into your neck. And we're going to pause the movement in our lower spine and begin to slowly circle your neck around, bringing your chin to your chest and rolling it to either side, allowing it to extend back if that feels comfortable to you, and just moving this energy and awareness in your neck. Allowing the space that occupies your mind today to anchor in. As we begin, today we are going to tune to the channel of cycles and time.
Oh, Victoria, thank you so much for that embodiment. I know
You're
I just told you
welcome.
my energy was like so chaotic, and I feel like I was able to just kind of move within that energy a little bit and kind of settle it down. So thank you for that.
My pleasure.
And what a beautiful way to start cycles in time. One of my favorite topics.
Mine as well. And as you can guess, Tara and I have very different relationships with time.
As always, 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 always. I've actually always had such an issue with time.
Tell me more.
Having like OCD, for me, it was very organization, scheduling based, which is, a lot of people. And I always felt like I didn't have enough time. I always was checking the time, even in my most intimate moments. I just needed to know how much time had passed, how much more time is left. And it gave me a lot of anxiety, and on a bigger scale, it was always planning 10 years in advance. And if that skewed off, it was really hard for me to kind of reground myself. And that has really shifted for me. And now I enjoy time and playing with time and space. And of course, I'm still organized and, structured, and I love to be on time, hate being late. I've really been able to change my perspective of time.
What brought you to that point?
Actually, it's the woman that we both work with, Jocelyn, who leads the
Shout out,
dance
Jocelyn.
class. She's
We love you.
incredible. And she ran a kind of like a master class or workshop on time, really focused on the Mayan calendar as well. But I've been trying to break my habit and addiction of controlling time for a really long time. But what really helped was we talked about the phrases we use when we talk about time. There's not enough time. I'm running out of time. And time is endless and expansive in every direction. You're never running out of time.
Ooh, I can feel you really kind of irritating people who believe time is so finite.
No, baby. I'm sorry. It ain't. It really ain't. And the idea is that time and space are linked. We scientists believe it's our fourth dimension. So it's not that we're running out of time. We exist within time. So what are you choosing to do with your time? And that's what helped me when I was recognizing, my cycles where I'm in rest and retreat, where I always had struggle of resting. I was like, no, I'm still choosing something with my time. The choice is rest or recovery time. So that, although years of work to shift out of my addiction to time, those phrases, recognizing when I say I don't have enough time, it's like, no, I have all the time in the world. What am I choosing to do with my time? That's where the shift came in for me.
What a way to flip the script.
Yeah.
Similar to you, I've always had an issue with time in that I understand it to be a construct. Like, I get the concept of it. And for me, it always seemed to work against me. And I think the way that time and cycles play together just wasn't lining up. As a woman who cycles and very much is passionate about tracking my cycle and honoring everything that happens during each phase, 24 hours in a day just doesn't really seem to, one, give me enough time. And I still feel that way because there's so much I want to do and so much I want to accomplish. And I also love to rest. I love my time alone. And then I also love to be social. And I am someone who, for a very long time, would just block off every day of my calendar and fill it with something to avoid myself. And it wasn't until probably last year that I stopped putting chunks of time to avoid myself on my calendar and, like you, shifted my perspective of it and would put me time. So Friday nights are now and forever my date night with me, where usually I don't have enough brain space or capacity at the end of the work week to do anything. Plus, it allows me to rest for the weekend. But a good Friday night in, that is kind of what jump-started my, okay, I do have a little bit more control over time than I originally thought. And fun little fact or, subjective fact, we, those of us who were born late, like past our due date, are said to be people who run late, and people who are born early are said to be early. And then those right on time, I don't know what to do with you because
you're right on time.
Because you're right on time.
Oh, I have to find out. I know what time I was born, but I don't know if I was considered late, early, or what. But I'm going to find that out.
Well, I was 2 weeks late, and I think that represents my issue with time.
Oh my God.
I'm a fully baked.
Accurate.
Yeah. was more so thinking about this past summer when I felt like I was dying every single day and my friendships started to dissipate and I had to face my childhood traumas and see how they show up today. You know, that very
Oof.
like sobering solo time that I feel like is required to reach the next level.
I love what you said about time and cycles lining up, or like understanding them both, how they work together. Because if you really think about it, time, when we're measuring time, right, how long something is, or when we can go and access this thing, however we're measuring time, we're measuring cycles, right? We have 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, and then it restarts. 12 hours well, I guess 24 hours in a day, and then it restarts 7 days a week, a month, a year. If we did not have those indicators of cycles, we would not have a concept, like an understanding of time. So if you don't recognize that you're constantly going in cycles and you're trying to stay in this linear expansion where you just are constantly moving forward, never taking the step back to rest or recover, you're literally fighting time. Because the measurement of
Ugh.
time is the measurement of flow, of movement, seasons and shit like that. Like you were saying, monthly cycles, being able to track that. It's all cycles. And if you deny the fact that there is going to be a downswing, then you're just resisting time. And that's why a lot of people have that struggle and anxiety about the future or depression about the past, because you're not able to understand that there are cycles that we go through. And you're going to experience some low lows and some really high highs. And it's about accepting the cycle so that way those highs and lows aren't so, vast.
Mm-hmm. And it's easier to regulate to the present moment. And I
Mm.
really, I've been feeling lately when I tune into the concept of time that I have to ask myself, am I being present? Because presence is truly the solution to developing a clear understanding and relationship with time. And I love what you said about fighting time, because that is really what it feels like, this crazy resistance. It's painful. It affects other people
Mm.
sometimes. Yeah.
I have a visualization that my guides always show me, and my pendulum acts to come out. So it is related to that. This idea of resisting time or resisting cycles, right? It's the idea that the reason why we use a pendulum is because it has that like energy draw. And we know that there's a connection to the center of the earth, the core of the earth. Like our menstrual cycle is related to the moon and the flows of the ocean. There are literal like systems within our body that can be scientifically measured on how we connect to the earth's rhythm. And when we're resisting the rhythm of the earth, the cycles of the earth, we're fighting time, we're having those big swings. So my guides always show me this pendulum, and that there's always going to be some movement, right? Like I'm making it a little bit more dramatic so you can see it in the video, but there's always a circle in which the energy is moving. Now, if you grasp on to one edge of the cycle and you're like, oh, but I really want to keep moving this way and I don't want to stop, I'm super productive, all you're doing is pulling the pendulum further and further in one direction. And eventually it's going to have to break. Eventually that momentum is going to have to slow down for rest, and you're going to swing so far back, and it's going to take a lot of back and forth until you can finally find like your grace, your center of following in the cycles. So if you're resisting your cycles, if you're just focusing on like linear time of I just need to keep moving forward, that, anxiety we all have when we're not being productive. If you don't allow yourself to rest, as I did most of my life, there was huge swings, right? Of like times of like being super manic where I'm just getting everything done. And it was never just, okay, now I get to relax. It was swing to complete other side and have like depression and not know how to be motivated at all. So recognizing those cycles, like you said, not resisting, is what allows you to be able to play in time and choose how you spend your time.
Ooh, so beautifully. I love the example you gave of the pendulum because we do hold on sometimes to these certain uh, parts in our lives that we have issues letting go of. And the tighter we grasp, I think, more painful the swing is to the other side and all around. And
Mm-hmm.
that really makes me realize, when you try to hold on to something for dear life, that it, it just does not, the consequences really outweigh the energy it takes to even hold on to something, right?
Yeah, because it does take a lot of energy to like grasp onto that, right? Grasp onto the comfortability, even if it's not healthy and you're not happy with it. It's just comfortable, and the fear of unknown because you're heading in the other direction. That fear is what's stopping you.
So perhaps it comes down to, how do you allocate that energy you're spending holding on to time and other constructs that aren't serving you? Where do you put that energy? Like, how do you begin to change your relationship with time where you're done in the fighting ring and you step down and you're like showering and you're like, okay, I'm starting fresh. How does one begin?
Damn, that's a really tough question. I feel like,
Let's both answer because
yeah. If you have an answer, go for it. I have something like bubbling in my brain, but it hasn't created words yet. So,
yeah, I think one begins by tuning in. I think the practice of tuning into your body to ask yourself, how are you feeling? What emotions are arising? Really have a conversation, I think, with your internal workings as to what is bubbling to the surface. And I think there's a lot of experimentation that can, take place in order to find the tools of where you can take that next and how to nurture the answers that come up depending on what it is, right? And I think that the clearer the channel you have with what your body and your mind and your soul are asking of you, the better experience you're going to have because you're going to know how to meet your needs. Yeah.
that's exactly what clicked into my head just as you were starting to say. It's everything we talked about last episode. It's getting into your inner universe, knowing who's speaking, because then you know how to tend to that and start to change your relationship. And I think another big step is having compassion for yourself.
Mm.
We give compassion so easily to others. That's why we get hurt in the first place and have a shadow, right? We give, but it's so hard to give to ourselves. And it's saying it's okay. Like you said, it's going to take time. It's going to take playing around and trying different things and figuring out what motivates you or how you can shift the perspective. But you can't try these different things without having compassion for yourself.
And I think the process of having compassion for yourself can look like tending to your inner child, tending to that part of you that never had their needs met, and sending so much love. And I think when you start to talk to yourself as if you're talking to a child, you're able to easily shift into that compassion mindset and say nicer things to yourself.
And be patient with yourself and know that it's going to
Mm.
take time to shift this perspective. And I think another part of going inward and speaking of cycles is knowing that there is generational cycles
Ooh.
within your bloodline, within your, immediate family that you're kind of swept up in.
Hmm.
And it's being compassionate about that. I know, excuse me, this is where I get like my throat starts closing up. I know for myself, both my mom and my dad have had cycles throughout their like generation leading far back. For example, my father coming from, the home he came from that led him to, go to the military and be a corrections officer, that led him to, you know, treat his children the way that he did. And for a long time, there was blame on myself as a child. Then as I like kind of broke out of that and I was like, no, it's not, this isn't my shit. It's my father's shit. It's my mother's shit. Like I'm not carrying that. And like kind of putting the blame on them without recognizing. And then I realized that it's so far beyond them, that this was their way of either changing the script and maybe it didn't work out the way they planned, or it's the script that they were given and they didn't know any better. Like once I recognized that my father was showing me love the only way he knew how to, the way that I cycled within the partners I had and the way that I showed up changed. The way that I recognized my mom was stuck in a cycle and she broke free of that cycle, but still created some turmoil within me because she was just finding her footing. Like that's how you find gratitude and compassion for yourself and for all of those involved, because, there's a reason why we keep dating the same people. There's a reason why it passed down from generation to generation, the way that we show love or interact with our children. It's because there's something that needs to be looked at. There's something that needs to be shifted or tended to. And that only happens through compassion. And those cycles give a window of opportunity for learning, for growth. That's why you got to tune inward to figure out where those cycles are happening and accept them and tend to them and learn about them.
That's something to look at. Could potentially be soul contracts. And when you start to understand what a soul contract really is between two humans, you can have soul contracts with your animals as well. They're usually a little bit more enjoyable than the ones we have with our humans. But the idea of before we incarnate on this earth, that we make these pacts and agreements to come down with certain souls. And we do often tend to flock in the same soul groups. And that's why you'll meet someone and feel like you've known them your entire lives, or your parents might feel like your children, or all of the scenarios can potentially play out. But coming back to the idea of a soul contract, isn't necessarily about the person always. It is often about the frequency that they spark within you that ignites this remembrance. And you are then faced with, am I going to deal with this lesson I'm here to learn now? Or am I going to either let this relationship run way past its expiration date to the point it's like molding and curdling, which I think many of us have been in. And if you haven't, kudos to you for being able to walk away. But, speaking about, holding on, I think this idea of love forcing us to have this bond or this connection for the sake of love isn't the way to go, isn't the way to best serve our greater good. And, the repeat of similar partners who maybe trigger the same thing. For me, I've always attracted partners who make me feel two different ways. Actually, they're kind of the same way. Either not chosen, like I'm not the chosen one, and abandoned. And, as much as I've tried to shift the focus to me anytime I've felt like I've been abandoned by a lover, a partner, a friend even, it's actually way more than that. And in reflecting on cycles in time, I feel like a lot of what we've been told comes down to yes, and I feel like there's this other half that's been missing for a very long time to many stories, especially religious ones. But there's always a yes and. And it's not necessarily the goal to know the and. I mean, that's not the point of going through these experiences and lessons. But I think what it really comes down to is, how does it make me feel? Like, let's bring it down as simple as it can go. How does this situation, this person make me feel? What is it trying to teach me? How can I glean some sort of lesson? Do I want to continue having this sort of experience? And when you start to ask yourself questions like this, you then begin to realize how much of a creator you are, how much you create how much you create your reality. And okay, I think that's it.
That was so beautifully said. And I feel like so many pieces of information that I had, you just like linked them together in such a wonderful way that made so much sense. So thank you for just.
Thank you for saying that, because, you know, Tara, I don't remember anything I say. Like, sometimes I'll just let myself, and when I really do let my throat chakra open up and like let it all out, my mind is not comprehending anything I'm saying. And what kind of presence am I offering if I'm just letting, well, I guess that's kind of the point of channeling, right? But yeah. I am listening to you, Tara.
No, I feel the exact same way. I say things and like as they come out of my mouth, I'm like, and they're gone.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
And then what? Thank you.
But that was so just beautifully articulated, and thank you. Just thank you for allowing yourself to channel that through, because I felt, talk about me hanging on to your throat chakra. I felt the difference. Like, I was soothed in what you were saying.
Thank you for those who are listening, who are coming along with my journey to heal my throat chakra. And as
we're all here for it, girl.
Honestly, though, as I heal mine, I hope it begins to heal yours, and you can then speak your truth.
Oh my God. Yes.
Woo, goosebumps.
Bitch. Yes. Can I ask you a question?
You may.
And you might not know the answer to.
Okay.
You mentioned that the type of guy you always tend to date, this lesson, and, you know,
like, we're going here.
Yeah, we're going here. We're going here. Just quick. We could always cut it out.
All right.
Do you know why? Do you know what lesson you're avoiding if you keep, or maybe you finish this and you know already what you've grown from it and you're no longer in that cycle? Do you know?
I do. Well, from what I've witnessed so far in my relationship history, if I look at it in a linear way, it does actually begin to make sense. The men who forced me to, I think, step into my power and step into my sense of independence, because I grew up thinking codependency was normal. So I attracted partners who put me second to their careers, were just focused on other endeavors. They had other hobbies that they are more passionate about. And, you know, coming back to the whole not chosen, I then was forced to choose how I spent my time differently. I think, you know, when we're younger, we have those relationships where we're together nonstop and it's fine and fun and lustful. Mm-hmm. But then when I, you know, got older and got into these adult relationships with man-children, really, I mean, every day I wake up and I wonder why I'm straight. Proves that sexuality is not a choice. I was forced to love myself on a deep level. And now I'm at this point where I don't feel like I need a man I don't need anyone for anything. I've changed my relationship with that thought process to then evolve into, I actually need community. I do need people, and people need me. And it is because of the simple fact that we are here to exchange energy and information and these key codes and light codes, and we can't do it alone. Why would we want to do it alone? As much as I love to be alone, that's not the way you can, I think, live your life to its fullest. And I think a lot of people probably share this sentiment that we maybe don't want to come back to planet Earth, that we're hoping that this might be our last incarnation. And it's silly to think about because, like I've said before, Earth is this happening place where a lot of souls want to be. So we're kind of like at the party, and the party, you know, goes through the cycles that a party can go through where things get a little too crazy and intense and you want to leave, but then you want to stay because some drama happened, or you want to like go swimming in the pool. I don't know what kind of party we're like
I was
in
like,
Southern
oh, damn,
California or
okay.
something.
I'm like, that's not the, well, I guess, yeah, okay, yeah, I see it.
It'd be like, you know, circa 1999. P. Diddy's there.
Okay.
Actually, it was probably still Puffy at that time. Yeah,
I
you were
I
like
like where this is going.
six?
But
Okay.
I was 6. But I'd still be there. If someone let me in, I'd be there. But I feel you on that. I feel you on that. I definitely, as we all do, have like not the type, right? Like where we look at someone and we're like, that's my type, but just like the type of person that we always fucking date, right?
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was always one of two people. Wounded Bird, which was like predominantly my go-to. And that links from the fact of like growing up, feeling the need to care for my sister and like never wanting to leave someone behind. Also, right? Ego, you're true, but steps aside for a moment. And it was also because you rather take care of someone else than yourself. The other, right? So that's all daddy issue, right? The other one was people who made me feel like I can be extremely independent, because on my mother's side, it was very much what you were saying. We don't need anyone. We can do this. We are strong. We are independent. Nobody tells us what to do. Nobody controls us because we're done with that cycle. So I had this crazy duality of like people who needed me so much that like if I didn't answer my phone, it could be detrimental, versus like people that I could not talk to for like days and then still have the same relationship. And thank God I found Andrew, because he was like smack dab in the middle where like, of course, everybody needs some healing. Everybody needs to like grow. And I saw that in him, and I was able to like be like, we're going to do this. But also at the same time, we have kind of like slightly different lifestyles. So I was able to kind of be independent, and it allowed us to build trust. But it wasn't until like very recently that I saw how my mother and my father's cycles, one breaking and one still living in, still exists within me. And I need to be able to say, how do I work with these cycles? How do I, readjust and realign these cycles, or leave these cycles? I know I mentioned last time that I think of, transmutation of energy.
Mm-hmm.
I almost said transmitting as like states of water.
Mm-hmm.
Taking it a step further, that water in whatever state is going through cycles, yes, but then they can shift into a new cycle. So imagine it as like water flowing in a river that gets evaporated, condensated, and back into the river. That's the water cycle, and it's doing its thing until a little piece of that water, like you need to shift, and now that rain didn't fall back into the river, but it falls into the ground and becomes like the water that a plant drinks up, and now goes through the cycle of like being a part of the plant. So it's being able to recognize your cycle, and like you said, recognize the times where that cycle isn't aligned anymore, and when we need to shift into another state of cycles. But understand, like in my mom's case, you need to break some of those lineage cycles. You need to break some of those energetic lifetime cycles like you were facing with your throat chakra.
I really love the idea of being able to walk away from cycles or sever cycles. I think that's something I'm really comfortable with. It's time commitment that I struggle with, and committing to time is really a challenge if you don't commit to yourself first. Time is sort of obsolete. You use it as another tool to do what you need to do. But the idea of committing to something that holds you accountable for showing up, being present, hopefully, and allowing you to work out your soul contract in a way that you couldn't do in any other situation. And I think when you are able to commit to showing up presently, a lot of these lessons that you came here to learn get easier. And I think the point before it gets easier is it probably gets harder than you ever thought imaginable, because that you're faced with that age-old saying of you wouldn't be dealt this card if you couldn't handle it.
Mm.
Obviously, I'm really good at starting things and not completing them, which ties into time commitment, which is fine. I think when you recognize that cycle about yourself and that is your gift, a lot of people struggle to start. A lot of people struggle to sever or walk away, where other people are so good at committing. And
that brings me like that commitment of time within cycles, right? That's understanding that although we're talking about how things go up and down, that it is sometimes really quick, but it is sometimes really fucking long. Like your 7-year cycle, right? Like that's fucking long as hell. And I think the big one is recognizing that they all intertwine. You're living the cycle of life, death, rebirth over and over and over for each one of these little cycles that you're in that play a part in your whole journey, which is just one cycle of, your oversoul or higher self. Like that, it's just all Russian dolls, it's just cycle and a cycle and a cycle and a cycle. And it can, like you said, it can be tough to recognize and commit to time and like really commit to being present and a part of something, which takes me to something else that I really wanted to talk about is my perception of time and how it plays into what people call past lives or parallel lives. I'm not saying that this is truth, but this is so truth for me. So I'm interested to see, Victoria, if you resonate with this. But truth for me when it comes to time and your quote past lives, parallel lives, all that good shit is that we are this energy source, whatever you want to call it, your oversoul, your higher self, your God self, whatever you want to claim to be. And we sliver off into many different rays of light, rays of information, consciousness that embody different vessels. All of that is happening at the same exact time. So when we talk about, in my perspective, past lives and dealing with issues that you face in another lifetime, it's because it's happening at this current moment and we are connected by our individual frequency that's living in this lifetime, in a parallel lifetime that's taking place in the 1800s, in a parallel lifetime that's taking place in 4000, in a parallel lifetime that's happening right now, but when it's daytime and we're doing this podcast in Spanish. Like it's all freaking happening. And to recognize that you can shift into another one of these timelines. And that's why people can read your past life. In my perspective, all they're doing is shifting into another realm, into another parallel existence where your energy is in form. Now, it's very easy for us to conceptualize that form as human. And that's why we talk about, and it's because it's experiences that link to experiences we understand. But this light sliver is also happening in other planets in other forms. And when you can really pay attention to the ability to go into your inner universe and tap into this inner temple, like we've spoken about, to access this main source and ride the other waves of light, not only can you communicate with those other pieces of you, collecting more of your soul, uniting more of your soul, you can learn from each other. You can heal traumas that you're all experiencing that's happening in the bloodline. You can set yourself up for the future when you're creating that. But it's recognizing that your lifetime, my entire Tara and Trieri existence on Earth during this period is one small cycle of my oversoul. And that's, I think, where I can recognize and give myself the most compassion. Because if over a freaking lifetime, I don't get the picture, I don't follow the plan, that's only just one little cycle, like the 24 hours I wake and breathe. And I can give myself compassion to say, I'm just doing my best. And so is the other million slivers of light that are connected to me. So if I'm fucking up right now, I'm just going to put my intention and hope that all the other me's are getting it together. But I have compassion for myself so that way I know that it's okay to kind of make these mistakes and step out of line. It's part of the fucking cycle.
Hallelujah.
I don't know if that's how you view past lives, parallel lives or not, but that's how I view it.
Well, all I can think about is if I had a death metal band, I would totally call it Oversoul.
Oversoul.
Oversoul. Yeah, the way that I look at past lives and timelines of existence is somewhat similar. I think it's really hard to conceptualize the idea that all of the other timeline or all the other lifetimes are happening at the same time.
Definitely is. And I understand if I sound like totally out there, but that's what being authentic to yourself is. I'm speaking my truth, even though I know y'all are going to be like, next.
No way. You're out there. You're here. You're down there. You're this girl's everywhere. It got me thinking about, so I've been told, right before you die, you have a flash of every moment of your life as if it's a film strip. And so you're going through kind of looking at this film strip of your life and making note of certain lessons and certain maybe karmic partners or potentially even sitting with all of the regrets. And I'm a sucker for people who are, dying or who are on their deathbed and talking about their regrets and what they wish they would have done. And it's always love. They always wish they would have loved harder or deeper that person that was forbidden, or it all comes down to love. I guess it's just really unfortunate that you were, sitting there or lying there on your deathbed having these moments of regret and remorse, only to then maybe make cliff notes for when you go over. I like to think we go to Pleiades, depending on where you're from. I don't know, but I do really feel like Pleiades is the first stop before you get to Earth. It's sort of this like initiation, cleansing. I think that's where they wipe our memories and then we are born.
Well, that's why Earth is such a happening place, right? Because you're making all these cliff notes and then you forget. You forget. So, some people are like, well, what's the purpose? The purpose is to figure it out without any memory, right? To be able to find love, to find the frequency
of... Hold on, can we just pause and acknowledge how crazy this existence is, that we are forced to remember things that we know, like we sign up to have our memories erased. And then poof, here we are, like...
Well, do you think that our memory is erased? Because if we're... Something I'm just thinking about right now. If all of the information is stored inside our cells, it's not that our memory was wiped. It's that our memory is not here. It's not in the brain where we conceive three-dimensional memory from this individual lifetime.
Scattered in the cells in our DNA.
And it's about how to link the two to recognize like what is the information and the memory I'm trying to remember and bring it to this conscious brain.
It takes a whole new meaning to DNA activations.
Dude, that's so wild.
No wonder we're tired. Well, I'm tired. I'm talking about we, all my lifetimes.
We're all out here. We're tired. Okay. We're tired.
Well, okay. Also, I feel like the theme of our podcast thus far is remembrance, and the memory of that we create our own reality is probably one that should be like the top 3 things we learn as a child, right? Like you
Mm-hmm.
create your own experience.
Mm-hmm. I think when you referenced that, the partners you get, right? If you're seeing the same thing over and over, it's not about the partner, it's not about the person, it's about the frequency, that they're all holding a similar frequency for you to learn.
And then the way I was able to break free of those cycles was to shift my frequency. And I was then no longer attracted to men who put me second, or men who didn't prioritize me or my time, or didn't see me for who I really am, because they weren't even able to see themselves.
Mm. And I think that reminds me that it's so important to also note that your frequency itself is cycling. Your overall general frequency is also cycling. So you will, attract what's happening within this cycle, however long that frequency cycle may be. And that's why divine timing comes in when you match that frequency. So when, this, and I know a lot of people talk about manifestation, and for me growing up, it was always just say it, just say it. If you say it enough, it'll happen. And it wasn't until recently that I realized it's better to recognize that even manifestation, right? Calling in the act of raising your frequency to the frequency of what it is you're trying to attract, or just abundance attracting, itself. I started to recognize, even for frequency broads, even for our podcast, where that cycle of creation happens. And for me, something that I was taught was using the mesa, the 4 corners, the 4 directions, and the elements to set your frequency to what it is you're trying to create. It's not, asking externally, guides, please give me this, give me that. Like, yeah, they're out here, they're trying their best to help you, but it's your job to match the frequency in which you want to create. Can I dive into that for 2 seconds?
You may, and it's actually stirring up so much inside of me, because I think this is another perfect example of yes, and because manifestation is such a trending topic and has been for a while now. So please dig in.
Thank you. I feel like manifestation now, or at least the way it's being presented, is very intention based, which is a huge part of it, right? Set the intention, say it out loud, set the intention. Absolutely. But it's not going to work if you don't start at the bottom. For me, it's starting at south. And the way that I use the mesa is south is earth, desire, what and why you want to call this in, really finding the heart desire to say, I want to create a relationship like this, a job like this, whatever it is that you're trying, abundance, setting that to intention, or not intention, that desire for that to come in. Shifting to the west is water, emotion. So really using your energy, your heart to set that frequency tone, right? So now we're saying like, okay, I really sat with myself. This is my desire. Now I'm going to feel it. Now I'm going to bring that and exist and embody that frequency of love, of success, of whatever. Then it's setting the intention. It's being in your heart. You're like, or in your mind. Okay, I set the roots. I felt it in my body. Now I need to set the intention in my mind, clear and concise. What is it that I'm calling in? Mm-hmm. Final step in our part of it is action, right? I can't manifest to be healthy and sit on my ass and eat potato chips. I have been through the steps, and now I know how to properly take action to set that frequency in my life. And the final phase is the center, setting it up and waiting for the cycle to return, right? There is a waiting period where you need to just say, whether you're giving it up to your guides, the universe, or just waiting for the next part of the cycle, you get what you put out, and then you're back at desire. It may not be that I called in abundance and I hit the lottery. It's I called in abundance and I got a couple extra hours at work. So now I need to, boom, start back again and continue the cycle of creating my reality based on shifting my frequency. And I think that a lot of people want these quick hacks to get what we want, but it requires attention and intention. And you need to do so by recognizing that there are phases one must go through to co-create their reality. And if you get it like a game, you can move through it quickly, depending on what it is and what you have to break off of yourself to get there. But you have to understand it's a cycle. And if you just keep hitting that manifesting is intention and you don't get it and you lose that intention, then you're attracting the complete opposite. Because now you're feeling like you didn't get it and that desire is gone and the intention is skewed and you're not taking action and you're then setting the complete opposite frequency and staying in the same cycle you were in.
I wholeheartedly agree with you and feel like there will be a point in time that we will be able to manifest instantaneously. But here's the kicker. I think when you realize, yes, of course, things take intention and time and this whole process, but I think there's this opportunity to understand that if it's not serving you, like you could set out your desire and wait for it to come back. But, and of course, action is sometimes required. But I also think that our desire, it kind of works backwards. Like our desires are showing us what is next in our path. So it's not even really a desire at all, but more of a premeditated move to get you to the next step or to the thing you want. So sometimes maybe a desire is just kind of this guidance that allows you to see into the future. And back to my comment about being able to manifest instantaneously, I really do think the collective consciousness is waking up at such a fast speed. And part of this, I really feel like a lot of people are going to be psychic in some way. If you're not already, you're going to get even more psychic if you allow yourself to be and you cultivate some sort of practice, this kind of training. I guess my whole point is it's going to get a lot easier. And I think you just will respect time in a different way because if it's not meant for you then, you understand it's in your best interest. It's for your higher good.
Right. It wouldn't, if it did come to you, your frequency would not recept it properly. It wouldn't be,
in resonance.
Exactly. And, there was something else that you said. Oh, with manifesting instantaneously, abso-fucking-lutely, we are heading there.
Right.
But it's by recognizing that you need to hit it, right? And you can have all those at once. If you're tapped into, and it comes with being present. If you're present with yourself, you have the gut desire or the guidance to do so. Your heart is truth. You're in your authenticity and you have the intention, right? You're like, okay, this is what I want. And then you make that action, whatever that action can be. Like you said, sitting with yourself or whatever it is, it will instantaneously manifest. If we keep practicing these skills and can hone it and shift it like that.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it takes the work and understanding that it's okay for you to go through cycles of learning to work up the spiral of moving faster, right? So if you've never tapped into your inner universe, you're not ready to manifest like that because you have to figure out, how to tend to your frequency so you can shift your frequency. Recognizing your cycles to know what time is a proper time for you to shift your frequency and manifest. Whether it's a woman with her monthly cycle or knowing that, something that I track all year. We all know by now that I journal every day. Every month, now that I'm on my 3rd year of daily journaling, I would reread the previous years of January, find out what my cycle was to prepare for it and say, okay, I know that I have a hard time with this, this, and this. I'm not going to fight it. I'm going to accept it. It's part of my cycle. That's how it takes time in that sense, but ultimately it's what you choose to do with your time. So if you're putting the time and attention in honing in these skills, it's going to drop right in. Because like Victoria said before, the work that we're sharing, what we're doing, her healing her own throat chakra is helping heal the consciousness throat chakra, right? Us doing our years of inner work has already set you guys up to kind of move a little bit faster. So just get in there already, because it's accessible. It's easy. Time, because it may take air quotes long time for certain things, doesn't mean it's not worth it or it's going to be hard work. Being present, having compassion for yourself, tending to yourself, those are the ways you co-create. That ain't hard.
Committing to yourself.
Committing to
I
yourself.
guess that's how commitment shows up for me.
And I guess maybe it is hard. I'm not taking it away from people, but like, it's only hard because you're resisting it. Oops.
Love the love the blunt truth you give, Tara.
I can't help it sometimes because we just get in those cycles in our head where we're like, but it's this and it's that, and I don't have the right to do this, or I don't have. If you're not hurting anybody, you're being respectful to yourself and others. I said it to Victoria the other day. If your choice is coming from your heart because of self-love or love for someone else, then it's not a bad fucking choice. So just do it. Show up for yourself. Freaking rat.
Like, let me also take a sip and pause. Let's cool this firecracker down.
Yeah, sorry. Always.
I guess when I think about how I prioritize my peace and live in alignment with my cycle, I tend to savor every moment. I, very much love engaging in my senses. Like, I'll take in the sights, the smells, the tastes if I'm lucky, because I love to eat. But I really do make note of these moments that I want to fill up my time strip, or my film strip. So when I am on my deathbed and I'm getting to watch my life flash before my eyes, I enjoy the movie. I enjoy this film that I helped to co-create and feel deeply satisfied by the life I live. So if we are starting backwards and thinking about what that film strip wants to look like, how that movie makes us feel, you start calling in different characters and you start rewriting the script by surrendering first, to letting go and letting things unfold, and playing an active role as the lead character in your movie by being present. And in order to be present, you must make your inner universe, your soul, your mind, your heart, all of these consciousness centers operating within this human vessel a really delightful place to be. And you'll realize that that part of you that is the delight is actually what carries on with you after you die.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
And what a goal for all of us to have, right? Choosing not things we feel we have to do or should do, but choosing things that is going to help light up our soul. So that movie is something worth watching. Tear to my little eye.
I feel like we'd both have blockbusters, but
My blockbuster's fucking crazy. No.
action packed. Mine's definitely a rom-com. Thank you all for supporting our broadcast here today. We honor your time, we honor your energy, and we can't wait to see you next time. Sending you all our love.